Greetings, fellow book lovers, and welcome back to Colin's Corner. Today we are going to go over everything that I read in the month of May. But first we need to go over the answer from the last Comedy with Colin segment, where I asked you guys the joke, what is Lil Jon's favorite type of bird? The answer? A paraskeet. Thank you, Dan, from the channel The Black and Blue Collar Reader, for giving me this joke. It's a Dan original, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Now, usually I break these videos down into the audio and the physical books that I read, but I did a lot of strictly audio or immersive reading this month, so we're just going to go over everything in chronological order. The first read for me this month was Jade War. This is the second installment in the Greenbone saga, and guys, the stakes have severely risen. Now, this book took everything good about Jade City and built upon it, in my opinion. The character relationships became more intricate and interesting. The plot grew even thicker and added a ton of new angles to this story. The politics in this book were brought to a whole new level. And last but not least, the world grew exponentially way more than I could have anticipated. This story all of a sudden feels so much larger than just the Call family or the squabbles between the No Peak and the Mountain Clan. It seems like the world of Greenbone, the world in this series that Fondly has created, is at stake. And that is just so much more exciting to see how these actions from these smaller clans or from even people from different parts of different countries are affecting the plot of this story. So I'm really excited to see how this series finishes out. I'm hoping to get to Jade Legacy in June, but we will see what happens. Next up, guys, I read Project Hail Mary. Now, I did this one strictly on audio, narrated by Ray Porter, as was recommended to me by many people on the interwebs. So I'm really glad that I did this one on audio. I finished this a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to sit on this for a little while before I made the following statement, because I wasn't quite sure if it was recency bias, but it has been long enough for me to, I feel pretty safe in saying this is my favorite read of the year so far. If you have access to Audible, please do yourselves a favor and listen to this book on audio. I don't want to talk too much about this because I do think I want to do a dedicated review for Project Hail Mary on the channel. I actually enjoyed this so much that I wouldn't shut up about it, and I got my wife to now listen to it with me. So we every night are sitting in bed and listening to Project Hail Mary. Again, she's very invested in it. I'm picking up on things that I missed the first time, but I am super glad that I read this book. Next up, guys, we have Legends and Lattes, written and narrated by Travis Baldree. So this was a really fun, just kind of low-stakes book. It was perfect to splice in between some of the bigger series and bigger books that I've been reading, the weightier, the heavier books that I've been reading. This book was really popular last year. I never got around to it, but I know a ton of people really enjoyed this book, and so I've always been kind of interested in getting around to it. I randomly picked it up. I listened to this one, again, strictly on audio, and it was just so, it was a nice change of pace from what I've been reading recently. I've been reading a lot of really heavy stuff recently with some difficult themes and really high stakes. And this book was a great change of pace. I loved the cast of characters in this book. If you don't know what this book is about, it's essentially a retired orc who has found a liking for coffee. And so she moves to a new town and she plans to open up a coffee shop. So this book just kind of goes over the trials and the tribulations that she's going through in getting this shop up and running so that it can be a part of the community that she's moved into. So The plot in this did take some twists and turns, but like I said, the stakes were pretty low and it was designed that way. I don't want you guys going into this thinking it's going to be some crazy adventure, because it's not designed to be that way. But for what it was, I really enjoyed this book a lot. Next up, guys, I want to briefly just mention a book that we read as a family. So my daughter had an event for her school, it was a school carnival, and the librarian posted up with a table and a bunch of books as the kids were exiting, and she was giving away books for free. So my daughter, just on a whim, not much thought to it, picked up Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt, I believe. Now, this is a book that many of you have probably already read. If I read it, I don't remember it when I was younger, but we read this as a family. We read to my daughter every night, and we were really invested in this story. This was a lot. I don't want to say it was fun. It was pretty heavy too, but there were great themes of purpose, morality, justice, the difference between right and wrong. A lot of really important stuff to be teaching our children, but also really important stuff for us as adults to revisit and to hear about in story form. So if you have young children at home, for instance, my daughter is 7, this was a really fun family read, and it gave us a lot of food for thought. My daughter was asking questions about things, what things meant, why this person or that character was doing things, and I love when books are able to make her do that, to show me how invested she is in the story. So yeah, if you've got children at home, definitely recommend giving this one a read as a family. Next up, I read Watership Down by Richard Adams. Now, this is another one that I somehow don't remember reading. I don't think I read this one. I enjoy reading books or authors that inspired authors that I love. And so I have heard Stephen King, who I am a really big fan of, mention multiple times throughout his works or just in interviews that I've watched of him. He mentions Watership Down as being a book that he loves, that, you know, the story inspired him. And so I've always kind of wanted to check it out. And this month I decided to pick it up. This is another one that I did strictly on audio, and the narrator is eluding me right now, so you'll have to forgive me for that. But this book was A, longer than I thought it was going to be, which isn't a bad thing, and B, was way darker than I anticipated a book about bunnies being. This book was pretty heavy. It was a great story, a great plot. There was, you know, themes of togetherness, fate, family, pack, resistance, all viewed through the eyes of these little bunnies on the ground. So the story itself was fantastic, and I also learned a lot about bunnies in the process. Last but certainly not least, guys, I read Mad Ship, which is the second installment in the Live Ship Traders trilogy, which is the second sub-series in the realm of the Outerlings by Robin Hobb. Hobb continues to blow me away. I have not disliked a single one of the first 4 books that I read. This one is no different. If you've read Farseer and you have not read Live Ship yet, just a little bit of a heads up. Farseer is written in first person, so we do learn a lot about a large cast of characters in Farseer, but Live Ship Traders is written in third person, and there are a ton of character perspectives in this series. Now, I've read a lot of series with a lot of character perspectives, but this is the first series that I can honestly say there was not a single perspective that I did not enjoy reading in this book, or the first book in this series. Every time that I thought I had made my mind up about a character, how I felt about a character in this series, Hobb somehow, subtly, over the course of 50, 100, 150 pages, would have me questioning what I thought I knew about these characters. It is, without a doubt, the best character work that I have ever read in fiction. And every time I think she has hit a peak, I realize, like I said, a few hundred pages later, that all along there was another peak. It was just still in the clouds, and the wind hadn't blown the clouds out of the way yet, because I just keep reaching new heights with Hobb, and I loved the way that this book ended. It posed a lot of questions throughout, it answered a lot of questions throughout, and I cannot wait to see how this series finishes up with the Ship of Destiny. I just want to touch on a few things that I have upcoming on the channel to give you guys a heads up. So this Sunday, that'll be June 4th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, I will be hosting on my channel a live discussion for Mad Ship. This will be a spoiler-filled discussion, so if you have not read the series yet, you might not want to tune in. But if you have read the series, please come and join us. It's going to be with Ben over from Books with Bengus Khan. We had a great first discussion on the Ship of Magic, and I cannot wait. I have so much I want to discuss with Ben about this second book. So please come and join us in the chat. You guys helped us out a lot and propelled the conversation in our first discussion, so we would love to have you. Another thing that I do want to mention is that starting in July, I will be participating in a read-along with 3 other channels, and we will be reading the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This is going to be with Christopher Navo from The Next Chapter, Robert from Punk Rock Cereal Bowl, and Usman from Bards and Books. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up if you haven't started Malazan yet and you're looking for a place to kind of jump in. We will all be starting in July with Gardens of the Moon, and we will also be having discussions about each book after finishing them. So if you want to start Malazan and you were just kind of waiting for a place to jump in, come on board. We would love to have you read along with us. A couple of other things. I am planning and do plan to release a dedicated review for Piranesi, for Project Hail Mary. I've got a couple of tag videos that I need to get around to, so you guys can be on the lookout for those coming up pretty soon as well. That's going to do it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books, if you plan on reading any of these books, what you read in the month of May. Now it is time for Comedy with Colin. Today's joke, guys: why can't you hear a pterodactyl going to the bathroom? If you think you know the answer, drop it down in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like. If you're enjoying the content on the channel so far, please do consider subscribing, as it helps me out a lot and is greatly appreciated. I hope you are all enjoying what you're reading, and remember, you're always welcome in Colin's Corner.